All right, so Jimmy Garoppolo, not just Jimmy Garoppolo, but look around the division right now. Not a newsflash to anybody, but Matthew Stafford wasn't great against the Cardinals, but just beat the Bucs a week ago. Kyler Murray was, I mean, some of the plays that Russell Wilson makes, Kyler can make. And then there's Russell, and we saw what he did today. We're glad you're watching this video. Give it a like and subscribe to our channel.
Yep. Also, check out the podcast below in the description.
We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
It happens to be the #1 vodka in America.
They have the worst quarterbacking situation right now in the division, period.
By a wide margin. Russell, I mean, his stats, if you just go to his ESPN.com box score, it doesn't look great. He didn't throw for 200 yards. For most of the game, they were going 3 and out. But what happened when it mattered? He made incredible throws. He also had the running touchdown where I thought Kinlaw tore both of his quads. It's like, whoa, he's running. He can't even pick up his knees.
He gave everything he had for that play.
In fairness, if you were standing there and watched the size of that human run by, he was probably moving relatively fast. But yeah, I mean, this is ultimately why they made the trade. Kyle acknowledged it's a quarterback league. You need a top 5 quarterback. You need a top 10 quarterback just to compete. And they did not have one. And I do think if Jimmy stayed healthy, they would keep rolling with him. He's not good enough. It's just that simple. Like, him alone is not good enough. He can make some good throws when the plays are perfect for him. He can execute the offense kinda. But one thing we've really seen through 4 games, 1 through 4th, the first through the 4th quarter, he can't sustain it. He can't maintain it. And then when he flips a switch, in this game, it actually went the other way. Started fast, then kind of ended slow by the half. But when he does, like, play his best, it's just not good enough. Like, he can't just throw, like, 21 points on the board. That's the thing with Russell. Now, obviously, Russell's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. But when okay, now it's my time. So, boom, 21 points. And, like, in 4 possessions, you're like, holy shit. Or Kyler, you just look at the box score. He's making plays happen. Stafford. Like, the Niners don't have that. And clearly, Trey is a long way away from that. But and if you do not get good quarterback play in the NFL, you have no chance to win. It's just really that simple against decent to above average teams. And coming into this game, Seattle, where they ranked in like every statistical category, wasn't great. Like, it turns into a Seattle game. But
right.
Like the Seattle game, the team that was coming in was not 2014 crew, right? Now They still have, their quarterback is dramatically better than he was then when they had better teams. So they are a flawed team. And they still are flawed, like when you watch them, they have some issues. But he's remarkable. And he'll kill you.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the things that happened with Garoppolo was that his best year came in a year when he played with by the end of the year, I think maybe statistically it wasn't a top 2 defense, but it felt like a top 2 defense for most of the season.
It just depends. I think historically a lot of people have ranked the defenses based on yards. I think that's pretty stupid. Scoring defense forever would be the way I would do it.
But he played on a team with a top, however you want to define it. It was one of the best, a top tier, a tier 1 defense in the NFL, and a tier 1 running game in the league, right?
Yeah.
And that was his best year. And you can do that sometimes. Sometimes it all comes together, and you've got that, and it's great, and that's the ideal. But most teams you put together aren't ideals. And I think even when you watch the Chiefs, you see, like, there's a reason they signed Patrick Mahomes to a contract that's going to pay him for eternity in all likelihood, right? It's a 10-year deal that'll probably get extended before it. I bet Mahomes gets extended before he gets to year 6 of that contract. Like, he's going to get extended halfway through this contract that he's got. And the reason is that even with a really good, we think a Hall of Fame coach, Andy Reid, and really good skill guys around him like Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, there just are going to be times, the majority of the times, your quarterback has to do things above and beyond, because most years your team can't be built with a top 5 run game and a top 5 defense. It just doesn't, it's hard to do that. Your quarterback's the guy you pay. He's around for 8 to 12 years, and he's your constant. And sometimes he's got to elevate you, and sometimes you can help him. But if you're going to have a year with a top 5 defense and a top 5 run game, that's going to be an outlier year. That's just how it goes.
Well,
it's an outlier year.
They allowed under 20 points that season, and only 7 other teams did. So they were, beside that year, the Patriots somehow had like an incredible scoring defense. They allowed 14 points in 2019, Brady's last season. Most of the other defense, the good ones, were like 18 or 19 points, and that was the Niners were right there. And you watch them right now, that's just not what they are. Mainly they have a fatal flaw, like you can throw on either corner. So they're going to give up points. To me, if they were going to be a good team, they would have to play a little bit like Seattle plays, right? Or Kansas City. Like, okay, shootout time. Like Kansas City early on today, it was like, okay, yeah, you want to get in a shootout? We're good. We don't think your quarterback can get in a shootout. Oh, he threw a pick. Mahomes will be fine. And what did they do? They just kept firing. Now, you could still run the ball. Like, there were times, even when they fell down, like, I guess 21-7, you're looking at the clock. I think there was 3 minutes left in the third quarter. I'm like, you can still run. You just need to get a drive here to score some points. And let's face it, they got pretty lucky with the collegiate level blown coverage. The Jamal's pointing at him. It was hard to tell. I mean, only Ken Norton and Pete would truly know, and Jamal, like, whose responsibility that was when he just stopped and Debo just catches the ball.
Yeah.
Like, so when it's back to
it's like, how does Debo get that open? It's like, I mean, something that won't happen 10 more times if they ran that play 11 more times.
But that doesn't happen very often in the NFL. You know, it's just a freak play, and that's what it took for the game to even feel a lot.
Felt like Debo was running like 117 yards to get to the end zone on that play.
That's where. Did you see the shot of Kyle? Like, he turned around like at like the 30-yard line. And
he was like, whatever. Yeah. You talking about that? Like, Debo ran by him, and Kyle just he wasn't going to do the Lane Kiffin run down the sideline, throw the play.
But that's where when people go, Trey, he actually didn't look that terrible. Like, yeah, well, I mean, one of his touchdowns is a complete luck like that. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think you could box score scout it. I think you'd have to say as the game went on, he at least. Yeah, no, I didn't think it looked good. I'm not going to say it looked good.
Yeah, he didn't. He looked bad. But to me, Jimmy looked good for Jimmy standards, but they don't score any points.
But then but then the high throws to Kittle, high throws to Ayuk, an interception in negative territory, plus territory, I guess, for the Seahawks. Like, that is, you have to plan your day around that. Just like your parents have to plan a road trip around having to stop for the kid to use the bathroom. If the GPS tells you 3 hours, you're not going to get there in 3 hours because your kid's been guzzling milk for the last 20 minutes before you got into the car seat. You just know that. You just got to know you're not getting a perfect game. You're just not. You are getting an interception on 3rd and 1. It's happening. It's happening. A tip ball, something. It's happening.
Yeah, I think this is one of those. We can talk players all we want. I keep going back. Like, this is the coach, man. He makes all this money, and he's thought of in these circles, and we've been talking about him for so long of being one of the top guys. Like, figure it out. It's a hard.
Of course, but this conversation is about Jimmy. I mean, I agree with you, but it's not just that. Like,
I know, but you have to figure out ways to, like, put him in somewhat conducive situations.
See, I agree with you, but I would go even bigger. Like, it's not about the figure out the play calling with Jimmy. It's about how come Jimmy hasn't gotten better in the last 2 years.
Well, I mean, I think part of it, and this is a theory I've always had on Wentz, I do think we can make fun of practices. And when I'm making fun of practices, it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Like, I understand, like, me, you, and random people. Like, an NFL practice is still not easy, but relative. Like, Brady and Rodgers have talked about this. It's a different world than it was 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. And things progress. I get that, but a huge part of football is practice, and they don't really practice that anymore. I think when you get injured a lot, and this happened to Carson Wentz over like 3 years during the season, because I do think you improve a lot during the season. You just look at the way Brady, if you ever have met someone, I would imagine most people listening to this have not, but like someone who spent any time around a Brady or a Manning, their work ethic, and I mean, if you've listened to this, you've probably seen like stories and some documentary type stuff on there. They don't give up a rep in practice, how serious they take every period. Like, that is their time, like Tiger Woods on the range, like in his prime. I would imagine that would have been a sight to behold in like 2003.
We'll have picks coming up this week, and we'll make them at mybookie.ag. Promo code HAM and the number 1.
Also, check out these great slippers. Overland.com/ham for free shipping. You're just like, hey, guy, you want to go watch this fucking tiger, train on the golf course for 8 hours? It would just be locked in, razor focused, just doing everything perfectly because your habits then carry over to the game. And I just think when you are injured, which he's injured a lot, and goes back to Carson Wentz, you don't get to practice. So without practice, it's like we're playing golf on Tuesday. No one in the group is practiced, so it's like, who cares? But like where it gets frustrating, golfing at least, is when if you spend like several times, like legit range sessions, you go, okay, I think I figured something out. And then you go to the course and it kind of drives you nuts. No different than a player. You work on things throughout the week in practice. Like The Bosa brothers, they don't just rent. I mean, they genetically have been given some special things from God and their genetics from their dad. But like the moves they have as pass rushers, like that is worked on and honed in through years of practice. Like Trent Williams is given God-given talent, but like his sets, his arm placement and everything, he hones that in with practice. And I just think Jimmy, I mean, I don't have the numbers, but the Niners would. How many practices he's missed in the last 4 years? Like that's a lot of. How many practices has Tom Brady truly missed in like 20 years? You know, or Peyton over his career. Sometimes clearly
Tom's probably missed less than Jimmy has. If we just did the raw total,
I would imagine so.
I mean, he did miss a year, but
in 07 or whatever, 08.
Yeah, I mean, so did Jimmy. Jimmy's missed years. So,
but Tom just never like has a quad injury where he has to miss the week of practice like Jimmy does. And that's how you fall behind.
Yeah, well, and just not getting like you bring up the golf analogy. I was thinking about it like I think it was this year. It was this year. Several months ago, I got a golf lesson, like a good one. Like dialed some things in. Haven't had another. So do I just get to go out on Tuesday and just stack everything I did then 6 months ago on top of? No, I'm back to square one, trying to remember what it was.
Yep.
Right. And yeah, you don't get this. I think the stacking is so critical. Just stacking a little incremental. And there's been no incremental. But even then, like I think even at his best, even when he was consistently on the field, there's just been a little element of just some looseness.
This is the conversation though of average quarterbacks. I mean, I think we would have these with 10, kind of Andy Dalton style. There's a group. It changes every couple years, right? Because guys become backups, right? Or guys' career ends. But Fitzpatrick, is a polarizing guy for years. Jimmy just was in this weird little spot in the quarterback hierarchy where he's just the most polarizing. But he's not as good as good players get polarizing, right? Derek, Cousins, guys that are better than Jimmy are also just, you kind of go back and forth. But like Kyle would give his left nut for that guy. Over
he tried.
Yeah, he tried.
He's tried many times to get another quarterback. Like we know that he agrees with us because he's tried to get other quarterbacks.
But now he has one. Now he's pulled the trigger.
Yeah.
Like he has Jimmy's replacement.
Right.
So there is no you can throw Jimmy over the boat at the end of this season, and I think it's an injury like this, like trade value, like I think you probably just end up cutting
that conversation is over.
Yeah, so you're just gonna toss him out about March 1st when Jimmy quote unquote officially is released or whatever. But like your quarterback room, Jimmy will leave, but like it is what it is. Now maybe you bring in if Matt Ryan's released or something like an older guy to help, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I almost wonder if the guy that you have needs to have a similar skill set to Trey Lance's skill set, right? So it can really help him. Like if you're going to have Trey Lance be your starting quarterback, your backup probably should have a similar skill set. Those guys are hard to find.